talking, made it an entreaty instead of a command. "If you can" scared me a little, coming from that immovable son of a bitch. The captain running the travel assignments at Landstuhl had told me that the next available flight left out of Frankfurt to New York in 2 hours. I didn't even pack a bag. The rental agent took the completed form and started copying all the information into the computer.
"How long will you need the car, Mr. Shaw?"
10 days, I said, maybe less. She handed me the completed contracts and directed me to where I would take a shuttle out to the agency's garage. I reached to put the papers into the breast pocket of my ACUs before I remembered that I was wearing civilian clothes. Jeans and a t-shirt and a gray wool zip-front coat, all purchased the day before in Frankfurt while I was killing time before my first flight. Only my tan combat boots were regulation. I had considered taking the uniform with me, but it was threadbare after too many industrial washings. Instead, I tore off the Velcroed-on Ranger scroll and 3rd Battalion tabs and other insignia and left the jacket and trousers in storage. I chose a new black Charger off the rental lot and made it roar up the ramp and onto Interstate 5, north, into Seattle. 10 years had done more than just change a few freeway signs. There was a train now, a light rail running parallel to the freeway. When I reached the southern tip of the city proper, I saw the football stadium, as shiny and colorful as a giant music box against the dark background of the skyline. It had been brand new the last time I'd passed this spot on I-5, heading in the opposite direction to Fort Lewis and a new life. Land and sky were turning different shades of black by the time I turned off the freeway. I drove over Capitol Hill, east toward the hesitant dawn. Dono might be up before sunrise, waiting for me. My grandfather's schedule had always been unpredictable. Some nights he would be in a mood and stay at a bar until dawn, lost in his own thoughts. Usually he drank at the same bar he owned, the Morgan, but sometimes he picked a different watering hole. A few places knew enough to just leave the big man alone with the bottle and ask him to lock up when he left. I parked the Charger in the first available space, halfway down the block from the house. Roy Street was steep, like every other street running east-west this side of the hill. Before I got out, I turned the wheel so that the tires were wedged against the curb on the steep grade. Habit. I looked at my old neighborhood for the first time in over a decade. Unlike downtown, it didn't seem to have changed much. 2-story homes packed close together on small lots. Most of the cars were a few years old, but none of them showed signs of being permanent fixtures along the curb. It was cold enough that the dew had turned to frost on the thicker lawns, and condensation formed on my lips and jaw as I walked up the hill. Damp leaves made the sidewalk slick. I stopped at the top of the block to stare at my childhood home. The street lamps around the house had always been weak, and their glow didn't encroach far onto Dono's property. No lights were on inside, either. In the dimness, the old house loomed almost a full story above its nearest neighbors, on a lot half again as wide. A massive dark block that faced the cold and seemed to radiate it right back. The foundation of the original house had been laid well over a century ago, when most of the eastern side of the big hill and the smaller slopes beyond had been pasture land. The years had been cruel to the house. By the time my grandfather came to own it, bought might not be the right word. The roof and walls sagged against the tough skeleton of the place. Dono had spent years raising and rebuilding what needed doing. The patchwork quilt of rooms he made of the once grand home would not have pleased either a building inspector or a historical society. But since neither of those would ever be allowed inside, what was the worry? It suited Dono and his young daughter, my mother, well enough. At least until she left him, just before I was born. I walked up the long set of wide stone steps to the porch. The porch wrapped around the house, with the front door around the side.